This is Nice Work. I'm Alex Chambers, and I'm alone in the studio because my co-hosts Tyler Lake and Kate Young are both off this week. Sorry, I'm a little distracted. This desk is kind of the wrong height, and it's not adjustable, and I'm left-handed, and the mouse is on the right, and so is the board where I turn on the microphone, and at least I can adjust this microphone here. All right, so what have we got on this show? Oh, this is good. We've got Tyler Lake talking with Kay Sargent. She's an interior designer who thinks about how we design for neuroinclusivity. She says when you make a space that's supposed to work for everyone, it ends up not working that well for anyone. Then we'll hear about this year's Granfalloon. That's Bloomington's Kurt Vonnegut-inspired festival of music, art, and community. And then Kate and Tyler and I have some recommendations for you to check out, if you want. That's coming up on Nice Work after this.
This is Nice Work. I'm Tyler Lake. So back in the 1950s, the Air Force was trying to figure out why their pilots weren't meeting expectations. After they tossed blame around, first to the pilots, then the engineers, then the flight instructors, they finally took a look at the cockpit. They got out some measuring tape and looked at around 4,000 pilots. They measured the pilot's waist, reach, thigh, neck, all kinds of things. And what they found out was, if you design a cockpit for the average person, it doesn't really fit anyone. And yeah, that seems intuitive enough. But if you look around, you see a lot of things that seem designed without any one person in mind. The office is a great place to start. The same lighting, the same desks, the same noise levels, a lot of sameness. That's something my guest today thinks a lot about. Kay Sargent is one of the pioneers of neuroinclusive design. She's a director of thought leadership at the global design firm HOK. She's here in Bloomington as part of the Eskenazi School of Art, Architecture, and Design's Design Speaker Series. She says that creating more flexibility is a big part of neuroinclusive design, but it ends up benefiting everyone. Kay Sargent, thanks for joining me.
Well, thank you for having me.
I thought it might be nice just to do some quick, rough definitions.
Yeah.
So we kind of are on the same book as we go forward.
Sure.
Define a handful of terms for me, and let's start with the big one, just neurodivergent.
Okay, so neurodivergent is a naturally occurring variation in how certain people think, process, interact with, or feel with others and or the built environment. We are all neurodiverse, meaning we all think differently and are kind of unique, but we're not all neurodivergent. People that are neurodivergent tend to kind of fall outside of what is the predicted or societal norm of how we respond to things, and they tend to maybe have a hyper or a hyposensitivity to things in the built environment. It can include things like autistic spectrum disorder. It can include ADHD, dyslexia, dyspraxia, a variety of things, different neurotypes.
And so when you're looking at those different neurotypes, and you think about neuroinclusivity, tell me what neuroinclusivity is and how you have engaged with it in your work.
So everyone processes things differently. We all are being kind of assaulted by this sensory stimulation. And so we really think about this as sensory processing and cognitive well-being to optimize human performance so that all can thrive. That is what neuroinclusion is about. Understanding that we don't all react the exact same way to things or situations or stimulation in the environment.
Tell me how you got started thinking about designing with neurodiversity in mind.
Yeah, this is a little bit of an embarrassing story in hindsight, quite frankly. The story basically is that about 9 or 10 years ago, we were sitting in a room with a client, and we were just about to walk out the door when he said, by the way, how do you design for someone that's ADHD? Now, I'm the mom of 5, 3 of whom are neurodivergent, not all of whom I knew were at that time. And I've designed every kind of space on the planet. And I had an okay answer to him. I did not have a great answer. And so curiosity is kind of my superpower. I wanted to know more, so we kind of dug into it. Most people assume that I did it because of my children. That wasn't really the driving force behind it. I think as a society, we have all just tried to ignore this and block it out for so long that we aren't really understanding what obviously is right in front of our faces sometimes.
Tell me about the techniques and the strategies and the ideas you bring to the table when designing spaces for the neurodivergent.
Yeah. So during the pandemic, the definition of a disability changed. It went from someone having a physical condition to really a social model of disability, which basically says that there are obstacles in the built environment and societal attitudes that those are the things that are really holding us back. People have impairments. We're all different. We're all unique, tall, short, neurodiverse, neurodivergent. We can't really do anything about that. But we absolutely can do something about the built environment. So if the built environment and our societal attitudes are welcoming and inclusive, then people aren't at a disadvantage. So we, as designers and architects, really focus on what can we do in the built environment to design intelligently and intentionally from the beginning, not patching, but from the beginning to create environments that have options, variety, choice, and some kind of control so that we can all kind of find that uniqueness. Because I think we're living in a time where we're trying to simplify everything. And so we're kind of trying to find that one magic thing that's going to solve everybody. And I defy anybody to tell me who is that average worker and what is the average thing that they're doing. I just don't think that exists anymore. And so we really have come to this notion that one size misfits all, that we have to get to a point where we have choices to accommodate the variety of needs that people have today.
Something my dad always told me.
Yeah.
I worked in the used car business when I was a kid. And you often have to buy secondhand floor mats for cars.
Yeah, okay.
And he said the more cars a floor mat is designed to fit, the fewer cars it actually fits.
Your dad is a very wise man. I'm so glad that you listened to him. That is true. I think what we have done in the design world of trying to design for the average person doing the average thing has dumbed down to the solutions so that nothing really serves anybody. It's kind of like if the fashion industry got together and said, okay, next year, we're all going to come out with the same thing. We're going to come out with a size 10 gray unitard. Every man, woman, baby, child, elderly person, everybody has to wear the exact same thing. We would never stand for that. But if you go into a lot of office spaces, you don't have a choice. This is the open desk. This is where you're sitting. They're all exactly the same. And we've just dumbed down the solutions so they don't really fit for anybody.
The approaches and the solutions are so diverse. Is there a way for like a layperson to identify the hallmarks of a space that's been designed for neuroinclusive folks?
Yeah, the challenge I think right now is if you ask anybody, is your space designed to be neuroinclusive? Almost nobody can answer that question because they don't know what that means. So we are on a massive educational campaign right now to really not only help the public and the next generation of designers and students to understand that, but to recognize what those potential solutions are. And the other part of the challenge here is that we have all been masking and dealing with things that have annoyed us and just kind of tried to block it out for so long that we don't even really acknowledge what our own triggers are. Our sensory intelligence is like zero. And for people that are neurotypical, you can muddle through. Something might be annoying to you. But if you're neurodivergent, it can be debilitating. And we also need to understand that just because it's just annoying to someone who's neurotypical, that doesn't mean that it's not impacting your health, your well-being, your productivity, your ability to be engaged. And so we have to have a better understanding of what those things are in the built environment, how they're impacting us, and give people options and choices. Over the years, we've created a list of things that are suggestions, 161 to be exact. I'm not going to share all those with you today. But I will say that in the multiple research initiatives that we've done, we've accumulated the top 40 that we think are really impactful. And in all 6 of the surveys that we've done so far, the same 13 things keep coming to the top, kind of the usual suspects. Some of them are things that are kind of obvious that we've done all along, right? Access to natural daylight, the ability to sit in quiet spaces, the ability to sit in low traffic areas, the ability to control like what's in our visual field. But there are other things too, such as visual clutter tends to be a real trigger for women. And women tend to like visually interesting things, but if they're chaotic, if it's out of order, if it's not, in the right place, it can just be like this noise that just prevents them from kind of focusing on anything else. And options and choices is a big one. Or for some people, there are a lot of people that just need to physically move. They've got a lot of energy. They can't sit a 3-hour meeting. They need to be able to stand up in the back. They might need to move or fidget. They might need to write something down. They might need to be able to move away from that loud talker that's sitting there. But then on the same hand, you have some people that need consistency. And this is probably a bigger trigger for men. The fewer things in their life, the fewer decisions that they can make, the simpler their things are. So they might have to have a dedicated space. So it's one less thing they have to think about, right? Think about all the men that are serial dressers. Jim Harbaugh, Steve Jobs, Obama was for a while, not anymore, but Trump. Literally, they wear the same thing every single day. And for a lot of very successful people or people that are just overwhelmed with too many options and choices, they say, simplify your life. Like, get rid of the things you don't have to think about. If you can sit in the same spot every day, if you can not have to think about what you're going to wear every day, it's one less thing that's taking up space in your head. So there's a whole variety of things, but what might work for you may not necessarily work for me. So we need choices.
Serial dresser is a new term, and I like it. For me, at least.
Yeah. It's actually far more common than you think. Women don't really get away with that, but men absolutely do. I don't know. I don't think that's fair, but it's true.
No, I think you are correct about that, yeah. Meeting the needs of neurodivergent folks means having a lot of different options, having a lot of different ways to go. So as you're trying to develop a system, how do you think about codifying some of these rules and these tactics? Essentially, how do you make the research scalable?
Yeah. Well, one thing we don't do is just throw a bunch of stuff in a space and guess. There is such a thing as variety anxiety. If you have too many choices, then it becomes overwhelming. So we really dig into the DNA of an organization, who we're designing for. And in our world, we believe that's kind of made up of 6 different things. And we talk about, what industry you're in. If I'm designing for a law firm versus a tech startup, very different spaces. If different regions of the country or the world, like what you do in Miami is not going to fly in New York, it's not going to fly in the Midwest, right? So understanding the regional differences and nuances. Understanding who you're designing for, 20-year-olds or retired military, right? Organizational DNA, the work styles, all of those things play a role in how we should be designing. And the more we understand that, then the more obvious the right solutions start to become. And it's about having a deep understanding and tailoring a suit towards you versus you just saying, okay, there's a person that needs clothes, throw something at them, right? But if I understand who that person is and what they do, and that I can then specifically tailor it to them. And so it's really starts by having a deep understanding of the individuals that we're designing for in the company.
So it's safe to say there's kind of not an off-the-rack solution to this.
Well, there's some general things that you can do that are applicable across the board, right? Color has a huge impact on people. Biophilia has a huge impact.
Define biophilia for me.
So biophilia is the incorporation of natural elements or plants. And we also think about biomorphic or biomimicry. Nowhere in nature is there a rectangular white box with strip lighting in the ceiling. Yet we repeatedly put people in those spaces and wonder why they don't feel comfortable. We have disconnected us from nature and our natural instincts. And so anything that we can do to create spaces that have a little bit of mystery and intrigue and delight. Nature isn't boring. Anything that we can do to incorporate, sometimes it might be smells, it could be textures and patterns, it could be fractals, natural daylight, access to natural materials, things that are more human, that we relate to, I think we feel more comfortable in. And right now there's this image of the future of workplaces, very, very sterile, very generic, very high-techy computer. I think people are getting that totally wrong. The more high-tech we go, the more high-touch we want things to be. We want things that we, as humans, can relate to. So we're seeing this huge rise in organic things, the maker movement, getting back to more natural things, spending more time outside. We need to bring some of those things into the built environment and stop creating these sterile spaces that we're putting people in.
Originally, I had wondered if there was a big challenge when trying to create spaces for neurodivergent folks and I'm blanking on the term.
Neurotypical.
So, yeah.
Which, by the way, I have to say, I hate all those terms. Like calling somebody neurotypical, saying you're typical, has never been a compliment. Like, oh, you're so average, you're so typical, right? I think we need to get to a point that we're talking about neurodistinctions. We're all neurodistinct, and we all have our differences. And there are some people that those differences really are very impactful in their everyday life and functioning, and they need higher support needs, and there are others that need, are lower support. But the language itself keeps evolving, which makes it a challenge. There's some people that hate certain terminologies. I would love for us just to get to a point that we don't even talk about designing for neuroinclusion anymore. It's about intentionally designing for all people to thrive. That's really what we want to be able to do.
It seems to me that a lot of the ideas that come out of what you've been writing and thinking about aren't simply or narrowly targeted toward the neurodivergent. It feels like a rising tide lifts all boats kind of thing.
I love that. So we say that when you design for the extreme, you benefit the mean. Or when you design for the edges, you get the middle for free, right? Curb cuts don't just help people in wheelchairs. They help people with strollers. They help people with roller bags, rollerbladers, if anybody still does that. Scooters. I almost got killed by one on the way over here. They help all of us. And so it's really about those the things that we can do to help people that are severely impacted by some things or more hyperly impacted will actually ultimately help all of us.
You were recently selected from a field of your peers to go speak to the U.S. House Representatives. What did you talk to them about?
I've actually done it a few times now, and it's the infrastructure, mostly around the infrastructure bill. And people forget that buildings are infrastructure. We spend 90% of our time, I think actually the number just went up to 92% of our time indoors. The built environment is responsible for 25 to 40% of the carbon emissions and the energy use on this planet. We have an aging infrastructure of buildings. 90% of the buildings on the planet today do not meet the sustainability guidelines that they need to get us where we need to go. We don't even like to talk about sustainability anymore because that ship has sailed. We need to regenerate. We need to think about how do we give back? How do we go, not just even neutral anymore, but how do we give back and reverse some of the damage that we have done? And so it was really about how over the years, we have not prioritized maintaining our buildings. And, the average building that these students here are going to be designing and building for, they're going to stand for 70, 100 plus years, a long time. And so we really need to think about what is coming and to be designing intelligently. And we need to maintain those buildings so that they don't get so out of whack that they become like a lot of our roads and bridges. And in many cases, they are. So it was really about encouraging Congress to invest in the infrastructure in this country so we can keep and maintain that competitive edge, and how buildings and building maintenance and building design is a huge part of that. the majority of cities in this country that are west of the Mississippi are less than 150 years old. And most of them were built as central business districts, and people lived in the suburbs. European cities are very different. They evolved over centuries, and they have housing built in the middle of the cities and kind of embedded throughout. And in China and in India, like in India, they need to build a city the size of Chicago, like 7 of those a year, like over the next 10 years, to maintain this growth. I mean, it's just when you think about that, it's mind blowing, and they're doing everything kind of from scratch. And I think our buildings right now are hitting that first wave of, are they obsolete? All the buildings that were built in the 70s, this massive, infrastructure that was done, or even in the 30s, those buildings are all about 100 years old. And if we are not maintaining them, if we are not repurposing them or rethinking how we live, then it's kind of all for naught, right? And I think in Europe, you have a lot of people that are designing the 15-minute city. Because again, you live in the middle of the city for a lot of people. We have to fundamentally change the central business districts to be more about the social business districts. And we have to start thinking about buildings that have creative adaptive reuse so they can morph and change over time.
Do you see a responsibility on your part to design those spaces in such a way and work with companies to bring in people and show them people who might not be currently employed because of the difficulty of working in a conventional workspace? Now you've created these new workspaces that might actually work for them, but you have to convince them to get in the door and come try these spaces.
So we look at this as a 3-legged stool. The first leg of that stool is the operational side, what you're talking about, right? Changing your recruiting policies, maybe your onboarding policies, your interview practices, thinking about how do we train our existing staff to understand what is, what the new workhorse might be like, and just kind of some of the nuances of that. That's a huge part of it. The second part is the environmental side. And that's really where we come in. We are not HR experts. We're not medical doctors. We understand space and its implications really well. And so we really focus on that portion of it, because if you take someone who's neurodivergent and you bring them into your organization and you put them into an environment that is not suited for them, you're taking a freshwater fish and you're putting them in salt water. You're setting them up for failure and they're not going to succeed. And then even if you do those two things, you still need to have some kind of adjustments or tweaks that you can make, because we're all different. You might need loop earplugs. I might need closed captioning. You might want to move and stand and fidget. I might have to have a dedicated spot that is consistent and I can control and I feel safe in, right? So it's really all 3 of those, and we partner with a ton of people that focus on the operational side, but that's truly not our expertise.
You've done all this research. As you were building this research and you had these ideas, tell me about the idea of writing the book and your thought process as you were sort of moving towards that.
Yeah, so we have so much information. We've published about 50% of it, only because you don't want to saturate the market, because then people will just drown in it. We have published, and it's on our website, and we've put it out there. And we think that's important because, as you said, all boats rise when the tide goes up, right? We are continuing that research. We didn't really want to write the book. I really thought I'd get through my entire career without writing a book. But we were speaking at South by Southwest, and there was a publisher in the audience, and she said, "I've never heard anybody talk about it this way. Would you do it?" And I would have been like, ha, 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 walked out of the room. My colleague was with me and said, "Sure." Right? So the next thing I know, we're writing a book. And the challenge when you put something in writing is you timestamp it. And so we really struggled with how do we deal with that. And we ended up putting a QR code in the book to some of the things. That list I shared with you, the 161 things. I have no doubt that there will be some new research that comes out next year that will make me rethink some things, and should. And I want, but then if I can't change the list because it's been published, okay, what do you do? So by putting a QR code in the book, anybody that has the book and the QR code can click on that anytime and get the latest and greatest version. And it hasn't changed in like a year and a half, that list. So it's not something that's changing every week, but there absolutely will be new research. We're still kind of in the nascent stage of all of this that will come out and inform us. Like right now, there's a real lack of information on and research on women and historically marginalized individuals. So we're focusing a little bit more on some of that as we go forward to flesh some of that out.
You are sitting in our relatively newly designed podcast studio.
Yes.
And as an interior designer,
Yeah.
give me some thoughts on our space here.
Number one, you've got tons of acoustics in the space, so of course that's important. I think acoustics and lighting and temperature tend to be the three biggest complaints in the built environment. A little airflow in here would be nice. I'm sure you would appreciate that as well. Just temperature control. Lighting. I love the fact that on the walls you kind of have a little bit of pink and blue. Those two colors combined. Actually, I was just talking to the students about this. Are often used in prisons because they're demasculating colors that make people like calm down and feel more relaxed. That's why they have them in spas, right? Like lavenders and pinks are often in spas because it just makes you more relaxed. So I appreciate the fact that you're trying to relax me in your studio and kind of, take it down a notch. But yeah, I think you guys you've done a good job. Whoever designed the space, I think you did a good job on this. I mean, it's a small room. What are we at, 175 square feet? Yeah.
I'll trust you on that.
Yeah, it's small. So, all good.
I was going to ask you about where you saw the future of neurodivergent design going. But I think after our talk, I think I can just ask you broadly, where do you see the field of design, especially in sort of workplace design or public space design?
Yeah.
Where do you see it moving, and how do you think this research has sort of pushed that forward and is going to guide where not just HOK, but where everyone is going to go in the future?
Artificial intelligence, I think, is a big game changer. And I could go on for hours about how I don't sleep well at night thinking of certain aspects of it. I can go on for hours about, how it could bring, revolutionary change. But I do believe that we have to be much more intentional and purposeful about the spaces that we're designing. And as designers, I think we need to create great spaces. And I'll just give you an example. I was on a panel recently and they were talking about virtual spaces. The metaverse and virtual reality and what a great game changer that was because it was so accessible and equitable for everybody. And I said, I don't believe that. I think there is a gender gap. I think there's an age gap. I think there's a social economic gap. And I think that there are a lot of people that right now it's the Wild West. I can't go into or watch most virtual reality videos without getting nauseous after a while because it's just a free-for-all. And in the built environment, we are very intentional and purposeful about being accessible, about making sure that people can get into that space. We need to continue down that path and we need to take it to the next level. But we need to create every realm, virtual or physical realm, designed for people and to really understand how we as people respond, relate, and feel in those spaces. Because the level of anxiety and burnout today is off the charts. And we have got to create a world that is more manageable, that we feel a little bit more control in, that we feel psychologically safe in, and we feel more connected to nature. Because we are way out of balance right now, and that's not good for anybody. It's about creating spaces that are more intuitive, that are easier to navigate. And those journeys don't start curbside. They start when you leave your house. Even getting to a building can be a gut-wrenching experience for people that are overwhelmed, navigating transportation, navigating the city. So we need to think about our entire realm and our entire world. And I will say recently, even though we don't talk about residential design at all in the book, there was somebody who said that they took a lot of the principles that we had talked about and applied it to his house. And his two kids were kind of bouncing off the wall. His wife was always stressed out. They thought their kids might be neurodivergent. They applied a lot of the principles. They got rid of the clutter. They calmed things down, introduced more biophilia, had more different zones, like a play zone and more of a quiet zone. They thought about the colorations. all those things. And in the meantime, their sons got diagnosed as being neurodivergent. But the changes they made in their house had a significant difference in just how they reacted in that space. And because they were calmer, his wife was calmer. And then, of course, he said, that made me calmer, right? So I think, and again, this isn't just about kids. There's a massive wave of midlife diagnoses right now because this is 80 to 90% hereditary in many cases. And so if a child is diagnosed, there's a very good chance that one of the parents is as well. They just have never been officially diagnosed. And so we have a whole lot of people now all of a sudden that are realizing, oh, that's why I struggle in these kind of situations or thrive in this. So it's about having a deeper understanding and a deeper knowledge. And right now there's a lot of misunderstanding about that. So anything and everything we can do to get the word out there to everyone, that's what we're on a mission to do.
Kay Sargent is the Director of Thought Leadership Interiors for global design firm HOK. She's here in Bloomington as part of the Eskenazi School of Art, Architecture, and Design's Design Speaker Series. Kay, thanks so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
This is Nice Work. I'm Tyler Lake.
This is Nice Work. I'm Alex Chambers. I want to make sure we're clear on a couple of things before we get going. First, a Granfalloon, according to Kurt Vonnegut, he invented the term, so he should know. A Granfalloon is an association of people who feel a sense of shared identity, but it's based on meaningless or arbitrary factors. So Vonnegut suggested that you think of the Communist Party, the Daughters of the American Revolution, the General Electric Company, and any nation, anytime, anywhere. Those are his words. Also, he mentioned Hoosiers as another example. Here in Bloomington, Indiana, a Granfalloon is a festival of literature, art, music, and ideas. It's put on by the IU Arts and Humanities Council, and they collaborate with various other groups. Granfalloon has been going and growing since 2017. This year, it's undergoing a transformation. Luckily, I've got a couple of the main Granfallooners in the studio to talk me through it. Adrienne Starnes is the Associate Director of the IU Arts and Humanities Council. Natalie Almanza is the Council's Program and Operations Coordinator. Maybe let's just start with the start of Granfalloon. How did it start?
It started as an academic conference. I think as some people maybe are aware, maybe not, Kurt Vonnegut's papers and manuscripts reside here at the Lilly Library on the IU Bloomington campus. And so this was a way to get scholars together to use Vonnegut's writings and teachings to think about their own research and work. And so the festival really grew out of that, that idea. And then over the years,
there probably aren't that many festivals that start as academic conferences and then have like the Flaming Lips or Sleater-Kinney performing.
Yeah, I don't think that pipeline is quite there.
It's not well established.
No.
Yeah. So, and then from there, I think Granfalloon really grew out of a desire to connect the campus with the community, to use Vonnegut's writing and teaching to inspire the sort of civic engagement and kindness and humanity that he wrote and spoke about. And so the music and the film series and book discussions and art exhibits and everything that goes into Granfalloon kind of came out of that desire and is inspired by him to this day.
So tell me about some of the, we might call them traditional aspects of the festival.
Yeah, so we always choose a different Kurt Vonnegut novel every year to kind of help guide the festival and the programmatic themes. So this year we've chosen Slapstick, which came out in 1976, I believe. And it has a lot of themes of found family and loneliness, genius, comedy and politics, kind of all of the Vonnegut staples. But we're really leaning into that found family aspect of it and kind of the combating loneliness. And that has really been a staple of our festival for a long time.
Slapstick, I mean, really kind of inspires this idea that we're building community through this series of events bringing people together, which is something that he cared deeply about. Even the term Granfalloon, I think, is a kind of a cynical way to describe how people form a sense of community and identity, but we're kind of flipping that on its head. One, it sounds like a cool thing to name a festival after, but instead of a proud and meaningless association of human beings, we like to think that we're adding meaning to some of that.
He uses that term, and then he also uses another term called carass, which is kind of the inverse of that. That is, I'm not a Vonnegut scholar, unfortunately, so I will butcher the actual meaning of it, but it's more so a family that has meaning and that you build intentionally. And carass just wasn't a good enough name for a festival.
I think you want to call it a Granfalloon rather than a carass.
Yes.
That's right. That's right.
Totally.
And those two words come from Cat's Cradle, a novel that many are familiar with. In Slapstick, the main character actually runs for office for president under the platform Lonesome No More. And his idea is that he's going to cure loneliness in the United States by giving everyone a middle name and a number. So you would be maybe Alex Daffodil 7, and you would be therefore connected to all the other daffodils and therefore have sort of a found family and a connection beyond your own biological family.
Oh, that's so interesting.
So really interesting to think about. And in a way, I mean, I think any event or festival serves that purpose to bring people together and under a shared experience.
Yeah. I feel like the most visible part of the festival has been the block party on Kirkwood,
Totally.
which I don't know if 2021 was that the first year on Kirkwood.
I think so. I think that was
with
our first year in
Michelle,
Kirkwood.
with Japanese breakfast. And then again, as I mentioned, there was Sleater Kinney one year. There was Flaming Lips. There have been some big names, big party. And that is changing this year.
It is.
Tell me about the changes.
Yeah, so we're kind of shifting the block party down the road to Switchyard Park. So there's a change in venue and location, but we're also spreading out the programming a little bit. So in the past, I think the last 4 Granfalloons have happened over the course of about a week with a big weekend block party, as you said. We're expanding the programs. They've been happening since March this year, and they'll go through September. And so we're moving the music component to Switchyard Park as part of a summer-long concert series. So there will be 3 concert dates in Switchyard with a lot of park activities beforehand that are free, family-friendly, open to the public. So we hope that people can come down the beeline and experience that.
And what was the reasoning for the change?
We loved having a party on Kirkwood every year, but yeah, the sustainability of that on our own staff and on partners, it was just, it was a little hard to manage every year, but also the stage at Switchyard is so lovely and just not as utilized. We kept hearing from partners that we worked with and partners at the city, partners in the arts community that stage was really cool, but just folks didn't use it as much in the summer. And we were like, why are we building a stage in 24 hours every summer on Kirkwood when we could be using one in this park that is beautiful and has so much space and is really more conducive to a lot of the programming that we have been doing.
So I did see that the concerts are going to be ticketed. So that's, I think, a change from the previous Granfalloons. But I also saw that the plan is to funnel some of that income from the ticket sales to improvements to the stage. Is that right?
Yeah. So actually, originally, the first Granfalloon concerts were in the Upland parking lot. Right. And those were ticketed. But part of the idea is that we will be making this sustainable, but also giving back to the community, not only in the infrastructure of the park, and some exciting projects that I think will enhance that experience for folks. But over time, we want to continue to make these as affordable as possible and give back to the arts in the community.
Tell me about what people should look forward to this year.
Yeah, we've got, like we've been talking about, 3 concerts at Switchyard Park this year with that public programming beforehand. Our first concert is on June 20th, and that will feature Waxahachie, who is a Granfalloon alum, I believe, from the old days. Adrian, can you fact check me on that?
No, that's right. Waxahachie played at the first ever Granfalloon concert in 2018.
Very cool.
As sort of an up-and-coming artist.
Wow.
Yeah, so she'll be headlining our festival this year with Kathleen Edwards, and that will be just a really, really really awesome show. And then on July 18th, we've got Gillian Welch and David Rawlings. And I know that there's a lot of excitement around those two. They're on tour together and they'll be performing together at the Granfalloon. And then on August 29th, we've got a really special partnership with Secretly, who, local homegrown record label. It's their 30th anniversary this year. So we're partnering with them to kind of host a bit of a Secretly showcase as part of the Granfalloon Festival, but also they'll have a few other shows leading up to that weekend. So Thursday, Friday, they'll have other shows in town, but then Saturday they'll be at Switchyard with Duran Jones and the Indications and Jensen McRae and Angela Autumn. It'll be very fun. And I do want to highlight one of our ticketing policies for families in particular. Children under 12 are free entry with a ticketed adult. So for folks, you don't have to hire a babysitter for this. Come on out, bring your kiddos. We want to fill that lawn and we want it to feel really exciting and fun. And we'll have some lawn games out too. Our office is really excited about getting some Granfalloon themed cornhole going. So some Vonnegut themed cornhole sets.
Love it. Awesome. This is great. Natalie Almanza, Adrian Starnes, thank you so much for coming in and talking with us.
Oh, thanks for
Thank
having
you.
us.
Good to talk with you.
For Nice Work, I'm Alex Chambers.
I'm Kate Young. This is Nice Work. And in the studio with me, my co-hosts, Alex Chambers, Tyler Lake, and this is Check Them Out If You Want. This is our segment where we talk about things that we're reading, listening to, watching, that we want to share with the listeners of Nice Work, so you can, check them out if you want.
That's the idea.
That is the idea. Thank you, Kate.
So we've each brought something that we're particularly excited about right now. Alex is going to start with something for a younger audience, perhaps.
Definitely a younger audience. Although I would argue, even if you're not younger, you ought to still be able to enjoy this. Mo Willems. He is a children's book author. He got his start writing for Sesame Street and eventually became a children's book writer. Wrote the Knuffle Bunny series, Don't Let the Pigeon Drive the Bus, Don't Let the Pigeon Eat a Hot Dog, and then Elephant and Piggy, which is what I want to talk about. It's a fairly well-known series by Mo Willems, and for good reason. One of the things about the Elephant and Piggy series is the characters. Gerald, he's the elephant, just doom and gloom all the time. He gets sad really easily. He's just he's a pessimist. He's just, things are not going to work out. Piggy, she's ever the optimist, just happy-go-lucky. So I really like Slop is the one that I brought in to talk about. It's got a sort of putrid green cover with Piggy on the front in the foreground holding a bowl with 3 flies flying around it. She's got her tongue sticking out with a big smile and a chef's hat on. She's clearly excited. Gerald is in the background with a swirly thing above his head that looks bad and an expression of distaste. He's like, whoa, what is that? And she says, this is Slop. He goes on to ask about the flies. This is one of the things I think that is brilliant about Mo Willems. He's got his hand up to his mouth as if he's just sort of asking a quiet secret, only to be heard by Piggy. He says, what about all of those flies? And the font is smaller. It's in italics. The drawings are pretty simple, and yet you get a strong sense of how the lines are being spoken, how the dialogue's being spoken. She asks if he wants to try it. He does not want to try it, as you might not be surprised. But then Piggy's really sad. And Gerald realizes his mistake, and he says, Piggy, wait, I will try your slop. He picks up just like a pea, looks like a pea in his trunk. On the next pages, we zoom in on his face, where you just see his trunk and his tongue and the pea-sized thing of slop just touching his tongue. And this is where the book is a little different from, I think, its predecessor, Green Eggs and Ham, because it's a different lesson. He does not like slop, and he doesn't pretend he does. He's like, I do not like it, but I'm glad I tried it because I like you. And so there's this nice little moment. And then she says, dessert, and holds up an old fish. And he's like, don't push it, bub. So then it's undercut with this humor at the end. I think one of the things that I like about Mo Willems is that it's mostly not making references that like adults would get that kids wouldn't get, but at the same time, it's humor that I continue to find really effective. Like, these books continue to make me laugh.
Very nice. Thanks so much. Okay, Tyler, what about you?
Columbo. I think Columbo gets overlooked, so I'm just going to run through why I think it's amazing. And we'll start with Peter Falk is a treat. And I think people don't really remember what Columbo is. For one thing, he's a detective, but it's not a whodunit. It's a howdunit or a how to catch him. So the audience knows who committed the crime and more or less how the crime was committed. We have to watch Columbo figure it out. Mm-hmm. The other thing is they were TV movies. They ran to like 90 minutes, and the biggest season had 8 episodes.
Wow.
They were 90 minutes?
Were they split into half-hour segments?
No, they were like specials. I think they were event viewing. So here's what it is. He figures it out pretty quick who the killer is every episode. And then he spends the rest of the episode trying to figure out how they did it and how to prove that they did it. And kind of how he does it is he annoys them. He repeatedly asks questions. A lot of them are creative types or wealthy types. It's almost always
a lot of the villains.
All the villains are almost generally. There's class commentary everywhere, but he always praises them because they wrote this great book. His wife loves their book. His wife loves their TV show. He often uses his wife, who you never see, as a tool to make them feel special about themselves and make flattery and make them feel like this guy's pretty dumb.
Yeah.
And they have this false sense of confidence. And then he does the thing that we all know him for, which is he's walking out the door after he's asked a lot of what feel like pretty stupid questions. Then just one more thing, asking a question they just weren't ready for, but they already think he's stupid, so they answer it in a way that they wouldn't be as defensive about if he had done it earlier. And that's the thing that I actually really love about Columbo, and that's actually why I decided to bring this up. The other character that I can think of that really does this is Andy Taylor from The Andy Griffith Show. If you ever go back and watch it, I mean, it's famously he never carried a gun, but he also does the same thing. He'll let someone come in and be the tough guy, the loud, blustery tough guy, and eventually the level-headed sheriff is the one that knew what was going on the whole time. But what I think both of these characters, Columbo and Andy Taylor, offer us is a really great model of masculinity.
Yeah.
The alpha male, obsessed, manosphere, Andrew Tate, super masculine defined guys. When you compare them to someone like Columbo or Andy Taylor, it reeks of insecurity. Mm-hmm. It's embarrassingly insecure.
Yeah.
And so kind of why I wanted to bring this show up is I think that Lieutenant Frank Columbo is an absolutely amazing masculine archetype who's smart and doesn't need to prove it, who's tough and doesn't need to prove it, who's a cop and doesn't need to carry a gun. It is also a really, really well-made show, and I think super timeless.
Oh, cool. Nice. Okay.
And Kate, what did you bring in?
Well, I brought in a book. It's called The Prophet's Song by Paul Lynch. My partner Carl was reading it, and I was really just witnessing what he was going through as he was reading it. It's a dystopian novel, and it's set in kind of near future Ireland, I guess you could say. A far-right government is rising, and the perspective is from this woman named Eilish Stack. She's a professional. She has a few kids, including a really young, like a baby. Her husband is a union or trade union leader, and he gets detained. It's kind of this very interior, domestic view of this larger thing that's happening in society. And so it's just kind of the everyday of her trying to find out what's going on, get answers, but also like hold her household together and get kids where they need to go and interact with neighbors. But the way that it's written, it feels very stream of consciousness. There's no paragraph breaks. It's all just solid blocks. Wow. There's no quotation marks. You don't ever know, it doesn't say who's speaking, but you always know who's speaking. It's always very clear. It's mostly just her perspective. I guess the thing that's poignant about it, or why I think people should be checking this book out right now, is that it definitely has that feeling of, the frog in the pot of water metaphor of just things heating up slowly, and this level of denial of like, well, they can't do that. And,
They're not going to do that.
They're not going to do that. And why doesn't someone stop them and that kind of stuff?
But then we're just going to keep going about our lives.
Yeah. And trying to keep going about your life. But then when your partner's detained, it's harder to do that. Suddenly your life is in a direct crisis. One of the things that I really love about it is the prose where it just falls into like a really everyday moment or something that she's seeing and observing. Watching the light now as it broods upon the street, a slow pulsation that gives to sudden clarity then dims, thinking about what lies hidden, seeing what is revealed in the soft blooming light is the everyday occurring, the center of the middle charged with the ordinary, the evergreens and the rhododendron, the paths designed for wheeling buggies, the cement stamped by growing feet, the troopings to school, the endless orbiting of SUVs, the elderly stooping after dogs and stopping to speak, the crows watching down from the utility wire, the grand parade of the year, marching them all towards some glorious summer under bannered leaves.
That was Check 'Em Out If You Want, Nice Work's occasional roundtable of cultural recommendations. And that's our show. You've been listening to Nice Work, a production of WFIU, WTIU, and Indiana Public Media. Find us at ipm.org. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next week.
If you like smart conversations, you'll like The State of Inquiry.
It's not just ChatGPT.
Marital satisfaction, how memory changes with age, social media or to TikTok or to influencers.
Strife, discord and conflict, enjoyment, motivation.
Cascading effects on rural communities.
Safe drinking water.
What can we do to deter changes?
It looks pretty, but it doesn't mean it's good.
The State of Inquiry, wherever you find podcasts and at ipm.org.